Welcome to episode 3 of our series upgrading a £1,000 bike into this absolute beauty. And I'm excited today because I'm actually finally taking it out for its first proper ride on one of my local training loops. I'm going to look at the impact of the upgrades that I've made and also tell you which ones give the most bang for your buck and evaluate what I might do differently if I were to upgrade it again. But if you've not seen episode 1 or 2 and you're interested, well, check them out on the GCN YouTube channel, then you can see how we ended up here. It's been great reading all of your comments and suggestions on the previous 2 videos, so I'm going to answer some of those comments and questions during the ride. But the biggest question is definitely, is it worth putting top of the range dura-ace components on a bike like this? Or would, as many of you have suggested in the comment section, 105 be a much more suitable and better upgrade? Well, all that and more are going to be answered, but better get going. So, avanti. The route I'm doing is a beautiful little loop near where I live in Bath. It begins with this climb, which we've used in lots of videos. But if you'd like to ride it, it's on Komoot, and there's a link in the description. On this climb coming out of Bath, I ride this all the time, and having stripped over 1.5 kilos off the bike, you can feel that, you know? As soon as you sort of start going uphill, you pick up the bike or you ever sort of go to accelerate, it's noticeable. And the other thing is just the improved shifting. So I'm very familiar with dura-ace 9200, and it's by far the most technologically advanced and sophisticated group set Shimano's ever made. The shifts are absolutely rapid, really precise. The front mech in particular is so fast. But a lot of you sort of asking the question, is this too much group set for the bike? You know, would it be much better to put 105 on? Well, for those of you who didn't see the last vid, there's a couple of good reasons why we didn't. The first is that the new 105 is harder to get hold of right now than a Turbo Man on Christmas Eve of 1996. And the other reason is that we're in a position to put dura-ace on a bike like this and do things that other people wouldn't necessarily ordinarily do. And so we can answer that question, what if? Whew. So though, you know, the weight reduction is noticeable on a climb like that, and also just when you pick up the bike, it's just, you feel it every time, but it's kind of not as much difference as, in terms of performance, as what you think. We've measured it before, you can do the maths, you can work it out, and on a 2-kilometre climb like this that averages around 8%, if you're riding at sort of 300 watts, it's only going to make a couple of seconds difference, which isn't much. And in that regard, I'd say, you know, weight is kind of a bit overrated a lot of the time, and you can get better bang for your buck and better performance gains elsewhere than just trying to reduce the weight. But we're onto a nice flatter plateau section now, and I think that's where some of the other upgrades are going to come to their own. Switching the wheels, the tubes and the tyres has made an incredible difference. The bike feels so much faster. It's perceptible, you can feel it. And well, it is making the bike faster, it's a fact, it's not just a feeling. If you're beginning your upgrade journey, absolutely, first thing you should always do is change out your tyres and tubes, because you can conceivably save, you know, 20, 25 watts, maybe even more, just in tyres and tubes. And that depends, you know, on the tyres that you have on there originally. But in terms of bang for your buck, it's absolutely loads. One of the comments on the last vid was from a guy called Kamil Jurovic, and he said, would we recommend switching to narrower bars just to make, you know, yourself more aero, and do you have to match bar width to your shoulder width? Well, it's not quite as simple as that. Switching your bar width to match your shoulder width is a good starting point, and a lot of bike fitters sort of go along those lines. But yes, making your bars narrower is a very cost-effective way to make the bike more aerodynamic, but it can also make you more comfortable too. You know, 42s for me are too wide. 40s, a lot more comfortable, but I've gone 38s here. And that's because I've experimented a lot over the years, done a lot of trial and error. I tried 36s, they were too narrow. I felt tension in my shoulders after long rides. 38 is optimum for me. I'm narrower, I'm more aerodynamic, but also comfortable. The other thing you should be aware of when switching your bar width though is the implications of it on the handling of your bike. So if you go to narrower bars, it's going to make your bike feel a bit more twitchy, a bit more responsive, whereas wider bars can have a bit more stable handling. The way to think about it is with motor vehicles. So buses have like massive wide steering wheels, and wide bars can feel a bit like driving a bus compared to a little racing car, you know, a Formula One car, tiny little steering wheel to make it really nippy and agile and quick steering. There are loads of different handlebar brands out there. These ones I've put on are from Pro, and they have a really comprehensive range of different shapes and sizes. But, you know, aluminium bars aren't especially expensive, and you can always try them. And then, you know, if you decide they're not for you, you've always got the option to resell them or swap them out for something else. But in terms of cost-effective upgrades, again, it's something that's right up there. Aero deep section wheels makes a noticeable difference too if you've switched from a non-aero box section rim. I'd say that it's not as big a perceptible difference as the sort of going from really entry-level tyres to premium tyres and tubes, but it still is a difference that you can feel, and it does make you faster. Plus, you can't put a price on looking cool, and deep section wheels look incredible and they sound good as well. And they're like swooshing along. Some nice descents and fast corners on this loop. It's one of the things I like about it. And the hydro brakes really do shine when you start doing that. I mean, if you're someone that likes railing it on descents and, you know, really going fast but staying in control, then hydraulic brakes are something that you should certainly prioritise. These top-of-the-range dura-ace ones have the servo wave technology in, and various other technologies that aren't found in the lower-end hydraulic brakes. But the biggest jump in performance is definitely from going to a mechanical disc brake over to a hydraulic brake. And actually, that jump happens at Tiagra level. So you could just go up one tier in Shimano's group sets and get a huge jump in performance. And what you get with hydraulic brakes is just that greater lever feel and modulation where you can just gradually apply the brake. Really useful when you're cornering and you want to trail brake and you don't want to lock up the wheels. If you compare it to the mechanical brakes, they're a lot more grabby, a lot more sort of on-off. Just stopped in the beautiful village of Castlecombe for a brew and also a bit of cake, which I've got from the Honesty Box. Now, I wanted to review a few things with regards to sort of price and stuff. So the dura-ace 9200 Di2 12-speed group set costs £3,569 in the UK. The exact price of it will vary on the country that you're in, but that's what it is in the UK. If we compare that to 105 Di2, well, that's £1,700 retail in the UK, or about $1,900. It's quite a big price difference there. With regards to the weight difference between the two group sets, well, I've got that written down here. So it's quoted as 2,992 grams for 105 and 2,439 grams for the dura-ace. So that's around 550 grams difference. So unless you're chasing peak performance or trying to win hill climbs, then I would recommend that you're probably better off spending your money on 105 because the shifting quality in 105, especially now it's Di2, is impeccable. And I think we're going to do a blind test in the future, but when we did it before on the previous 11-speed generation group sets, it was very hard to tell the difference, such as the quality of shifting. The biggest difference between the two is the weight. Plus, with the cross-compatibility of the group sets, something which is even better now because 105 is 12-speed as well as Ultegra and dura-ace, you can mix and match components and potentially, upgrade just certain parts to Ultegra or dura-ace where, you want them to be better in your particular setup or for your particular needs. Personally, I'd be inclined to go for a 105 Di2 group set, but then initially just go for the dura-ace chain set. This is because the chain set is one of the areas where you can save most of the weight out of all the components. It's one of the heaviest components in the group set. But also it means you could get the power meter option, which in the UK retails for £1,200. And having a power meter, I think that's a really good bang for your buck upgrade in that you're able to pace your efforts, and also it can improve your training a huge amount. But if you're not bothered about power, some people aren't, and weight saving is your goal, then you can still change the chain set, but not to a power meter one. And the other big area where it's a good place to save weight on a group set is the cassette, and simply switching to a higher grade one will save considerable weight. I mean, it's a big hunk of metal. Well, before I finish my coffee and cake and get back on the bike, I've got another question I'm going to answer from someone who put on the last video, which was from Eric Madden. And he said, I think an important question for everyday folk is the cost difference of doing these upgrades versus selling your original bike and buying a higher spec bike new. Well, I think it's a case-by-case basis. It depends very much on your circumstances, your riding, what you want from a bike and the bike that you have. I wouldn't really condone it being cost effective to replace components that are new and not worn out. It'd be better to just buy a higher spec bike in the first place. But, it's a sunk cost, your bike components. Once they've worn out and become used, you've got use out of them, you've got value out of them. So replacing worn components as and when they wear out is actually a good thing to do if you're going to upgrade at that stage. It's something that I used to do. I remember when my cassette wore out and my drivetrain wore out, I changed that up to Ultegra from 105 back in the day, and then eventually when my sort of brakes conked out and they just lost their life, I switched them out to Ultegra ones, and gradually over time my bike morphed from being a 105 bike into an Ultegra one. Well, I'm going to finish my cake and my coffee now and get back on the road, but how beautiful is this village? So nice. That was a good ride, good brakes. Such a hot day today. I'm going to get myself a refreshing beverage. Refreshing beverage. So to summarise, I mean, this ride's really good fun. I really enjoyed it, and all the upgrades we've done have absolutely transformed the bike. There's a lot to be said for good quality aluminium frames. I think they're often underrated as to how good they are, particularly in terms of stiffness. I think this really does highlight that. But in order of priority and bang for your buck of upgrades, as I alluded to in the video, I would say first thing, tyres, tubes, then I'd say handlebars, and then I'd start looking at your wheels and then your brakes. And then when it comes to the group set, I would upgrade that as things wear out, and I'd probably mix and match and not just do all of one group set, but prioritise certain bits according to my budget and as and when they wear out. But although this is a great frame and the dura-ace is incredible, if I'm being truly honest, I do feel that it is too much of an upgrade for this frame, and many of you have commented that, especially when you just consider the total price of what dura-ace costs versus the price of what the frame is worth. It's a bit like putting Ferrari level spec ceramic carbon brakes and transmission on like a Mazda MX-5, which is a good car, but you get my drift. I think what I wouldn't hesitate to do though is to put 105 level components on a frame like this and put a power meter on it, as I think that would make a huge amount of difference. Thanks again for all your comments throughout the series. I'm going to read you one more, which is from a guy called Nat Tilano, who wrote, what we need now is a cheap frame with expensive group set versus expensive frame with a low-end group set video. I think that's an absolutely cracking idea and something that we're definitely going to have a look at doing. But comments like that often get made into videos. So if you've got an idea that you think's really good and you want to see it made as a video, fire it down in the comments section below. And yeah, we love reading them. If you've enjoyed this series, give us a big thumbs up, subscribe and all that jazz, and I'll see you in the next one. Love you, bye.